the bookshop, it's the bookshop, it's the bookshop of Beverly Farms.
Howdy, everybody. It is Sam Feifel, your host of John Updike's Ghost, your favorite little podcast about reading, writing, capitalism, the holidays, selling things, and making grandiose statements about how awesome stuff is. I am joined, as always, by the co-owner of the bookshop of Beverly Farms, my sister, someone who always buttons her shirt all the way up to the top, Hannah Harlow. How are you doing today, Hannah?
I am here, ready to go. It's Thanksgiving this week. And after that, it's just bonkers time in the store. So I'm geared up and I'm ready to talk about our favorite books of 2024.
Good, because that is the topic of this podcast. If you were not ready for it, it would be a problem.
Yeah.
I am aspiring to get this out so that people can listen to it during their long Thanksgiving drives. We will see whether I actually accomplish this. I was ready to do this yesterday at 9 o'clock in the morning, which would have ensured that that would happen. Someone was not ready yesterday. So if it is not available by Thanksgiving, you know whose fault it is. Not mine.
Noted.
Okay. So these, as everybody will remember from past podcasts, because they are such big-time loyal listeners, are not the best books of the year because we don't know what the best books of the year are, because we only read about 75 of them each. That's what mine's about 75. That's yours too?
Mine's about 75. I didn't actually count, but I assume it's about that.
Yeah, it's something like that. And there were thousands of books released this year, so there might be wicked awesome books that we just didn't read. Hannah is much better about reading all of the popular books than I am, but still there are many popular books that we have not read. So these are our favorite books of the year, and we will talk a little bit about why they are our favorite over the course of, I'm not going to do an agenda because that would give away all the fun. So we're just going to start listing our favorite books. Why don't we get your, on this list anyway, number one book out of the way, since we talk about it all the time.
Right.
James.
Yeah. James by Percival Everett. I've talked about it on like maybe dozens of these podcasts. I've called it a masterpiece. I have predicted that it would win the National Book Award, and it did.
And it did.
So yeah, that was my favorite. I think it, will be around for many, many years to come, and people will be reading it for a long time. That's my number one pick.
Number one pick.
What about
you? My number one pick, I don't really have a number one pick. I didn't rank them, and I don't think you really ranked them either. So
I didn't really either.
That was unfair, but we've just talked so much about James, I wanted to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Similarly, one that we've talked about many, many times is definitely on my favorite books of the year list is good friend Jessica Anthony's The Most. I've been just so pleased to see how much positive attention it's getting. I think it is a really not just like important and literary book, but just a fun book. It's fun and weird and unpredictable and very accessible. You can crush it in a couple of days. And I hope people keep buying it because I want to put lots of money in Jessica Anthony's pocket, but also because they will enjoy this book. So that's not my number one. I'm not ranking them, but we've talked about it a lot. So we'll get it out of the way. What is one that we have not talked about that much that you would like to put some attention on?
I mean, I think we've talked about every single book on my list, but one we haven't talked about in a long time that I think is our one overlap is Fire Exit by Morgan Talty.
Yes.
Which I found kind of quietly affecting and I think is a great read, but also you learn about another culture, you learn things, it makes you think about how things are and maybe how they should be and how they could be different.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, I have Fire Exit on my list of 10 favorite books of the year too. Again, an important and powerful and literary book that is also just a really enjoyable read. I think Morgan's special talent is just really readable text that is not sort of in the classic form of readable text, right? It's like, it's somehow breezy without being breezy. Like
Right.
I just find his prose like effortless, and I'm able to access his characters like super easily. I know who they are. I can always picture them. They always seem super real to me. Partly that's because of
Totally.
pain, and I've probably met some of these guys. But I we look up sales numbers every once in a while, and for like the big books of the year, Morgan's book does not sell as well as some of these other books, and I don't know
get
why.
that.
I don't get
I
it at
don't
all.
get it.
It makes no sense to me. It should be selling like crazy. It is not like some kind of like, weirdo literary book. Like this is like a very normal piece of literature. And I feel like people are kind of treating it like, oh, that's just for the literary types or something. Maybe because it's on Tin House. I don't know.
I mean, Tin House is a small publisher. But what's interesting to me is, his first book was a collection of short stories. It was a paperback original. Maybe it's a price point issue. I don't know. But we looked up the sales numbers. That paperback sold way better than his novel is selling. And I don't really get that. It makes no sense.
I don't get it. Because I feel like it's everywhere. It's been in the Times. It's been, he's been interviewed all over the place. Like if there's people are waiting for Christmas to buy it for themselves.
Maybe it's been on awards long lists and maybe short lists. I haven't totally been paying attention. And that said, we've sold it pretty well in the store because we've been recommending it. So I feel good about that. And I hope we sell a bunch more in December.
Yeah, no, I just, this is, and it actually is kind of a great gift book. It's a book you can give to like teenagers and college kids. I think like it's just of the moment. I think it's really good. A book that, let's see here. Let's go with a book that is kind of obscure for me is, I really enjoyed The Physics of Sorrow by Georgi Gospodinov.
Tell me more.
I don't know if anybody else has read this book. I don't know why. I always just go into the advanced reader copy shelf and try to pick something that looks weird. I like Eastern European / Russian stuff. This guy's from Bulgaria. I didn't think I'd ever read a book from Bulgaria. And The Physics of Sorrow is, I'm assuming this guy is in his 40s. It's just this really cool parallel track where he, the sort of protagonist has this like experience of growing up in the 90s, except they're in Bulgaria and they have this whole history of World War II being so much more present and real in a way that it's not for us in the United States. Like, I think it's easier for us to just sort of think of World War II as like this movie that happened because there isn't all of this evidence of it lying around our sort of landscape, whereas you're in Bulgaria and the Cold War was just so much more real and present and on top of your head. But, you're still listening to indie rock and still reading comic books. And it's a super weird book. Like, this is the opposite of Fire Exit. I would say it's not like right there accessible, but it's just reminded me of why I like Russian literature. And it's because these are people writing from a just completely and totally different perspective than American writers. And they grew up and did things in similar but opposite ways. So if you come across that book, you should read it.
We definitely have it in the store.
Yeah. I'm sure we have the one copy we ordered because I said it was
months
good.
ago.
Yes.
So I will talk about Brightly Shining by Ingvild Rishoi next. This is a little Norwegian book, and I say little just because it is small and
actually little
in size. And I have been comparing it to Claire Keegan's Small Things Like These. And now I've been talking to some other people who have read it that I've recommended they read it. And I think they're confused because it's just not as necessarily happy as that book. Not
charming.
That that's like a happy book.
Right.
I find Brightly Shining super charming. It is all about the voice. It's narrated by, I think it's a 9-year-old girl.
Oh.
And I think some people are initially put off because her dad is an alcoholic who just, continues to fail her and her sister. And the mom is out of the picture. So the three of them are kind of living in a like not super nice apartment. They're just always struggling to get by because the dad can't hold down a job. And now it's the holiday season, and he gets this job selling Christmas trees.
Oh,
putting
it's a Christmas book.
trees. Yeah, it's a Christmas book.
Yeah.
He's putting Christmas trees on people's car, like
Yeah.
hauling stuff around. And for like a hot minute, everyone's like super hopeful that he's going to be able to bring in some money for the holidays and they'll have a nice December.
No.
And of course, he totally fails them. But the older sister's like 15 or 16. And so she takes over his job.
Oh.
And the most of the book is the sister just like holding shit down, and she's awesome. And the two sisters have this like amazing relationship. The younger sister who's narrating, she misunderstands that, she's a little bit of an unreliable narrator, like you as the reader
9.
kind of know more than she does. But you see all these people helping her and helping the two of them, like the neighbors help, the guy who also works at the, Christmas tree farm place is helping them. And I really think it's about the community that, comes together. And I found it really beautiful. The ending is super weird.
Oh.
And it's like a little bit left up to interpretation. But I really,
You're down with that. Yeah.
I am down.
Yeah. All right. Because I don't remember Brightly Shining. So that I love Christmas books, as you know. So it's cool to have another Christmas book as our disposal.
And it's a super quick read. The chapters are short and it's a short book. And I read it, in like a day. It was great.
Another good gifty book.
Yes.
We went to a party the other night for the first time in a while. We don't get invited to parties. Should not be surprising to anybody. But so we went to a party, and I was like, maybe I'll bring them a book as a gift because Hannah does that. And I just couldn't find a book that was appropriate.
Brightly Shining would have been perfect.
Would have been great.
It's a great host/hostess gift.
I know. I didn't have one. Let's see. I've got a book with Bright in the title. That would be a terrible hostess gift. And that is The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman.
Here is a 1,000-page book for you
Here's
to never
a
finish.
doorstop that you can use to keep your door open. I loved The Bright Sword. It was designed perfectly for people like me. I like Lev Grossman's whole sense of humor and style of writing. It is very 90s and slacker, and that is just what I like to read. All the sort of caustic, sarcastic banter, but set in King Arthur's England. What more? I love King Arthur. I love swords. I like knights. I like all the heraldry and history of England that he's squeezed in there. It's fun. You actually learn a lot. So I'm super glad that Lev wrote this book. I don't know who read it, but I did. And hopefully
I read
other
part
people
of
will.
it. I didn't read the whole thing. It was too long.
Well, there's like
there's
6 different chapters where I'm like, how is there more after this? This should be the end. And then, hey, there's a whole bunch more.
I really liked it too. Also because I feel like it's a new take on King Arthur's stories. Like he expands the world.
Oh, totally. And that's definitely a place where you're like, what else could there possibly be in King Arthur? And there totally is. Like it's fun and
it was fun.
Charming. Yeah.
Yeah. I will talk about I have at least one kind of pure fantasy pick, and that yours was kind of fantastical. There's magic in that.
There is.
So I'm going to talk about The Book of Love by Kelly Link. I adored this book. It came out.
I forgot about this book.
I did too, because it came out really early in the year. It came out in March, maybe.
Right.
It's also a bit of a doorstop. I think it's like 600 pages. I found it like just pure joy to read. Those 600 pages flew by for me. I recall I was reading it while I had sprained my ankle and I was laid up on the couch.
That's right.
And it's totally engrossing. She does a great job of this world building and the magic that exists in this world, and has totally enjoyable characters. Again, this is about sisters, and then there's like a love interest, and weird stuff happens, and it's totally great.
It's also set in Massachusetts.
It is set in Massachusetts.
So you massholes out there will see familiar sights.
Coastal
South Shore,
Mass.
right? South Shore.
Yeah, I think so. One of the shores.
One of the shore. Well, you live on the North Shore, so
I
I would
do.
think you would recognize the
It
North
wasn't
Shore.
North Shore. It was a made up town, and it did feel a little South Shore-ish.
Like Scituate or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's I know somebody who lives in Scituate, and I'm always like, man, that is the worst town name ever. I live in Scituate. Like, screw you.
Moving on.
Let's see. A book with, I have a couple of different books with magic in it.
I have another one too.
Let's see. I would go with the Book of Elsewhere. Has lots of magic in it. Not set in Massachusetts. By Keanu Reeves and China Miéville.
Where is it set?
It's set like all over the place. It's like, it's a global book. He's constantly just cruising around the world looking for the pig he needs to kill.
That right there tells you how weird it is.
It's the weirdest book. I love how weird it is. It's so strange. I love, Keanu Reeves is, I feel like, he's held to this super high bar because it's like Keanu Reeves. He's super cool. And then somehow everything he does is just as cool as it should be. Like, this should have sucked. It should have been stupid and bad. And it's not. It's so good. I find myself talking about it all the time because it's so just weird. And it's this Keanu Reeves avatar. You can picture him as the protagonist. Like, I'm sure it's going to be a movie at some point. And I can't wait to see how they do all this pig fighting. It's just so strange. It's the strangest book.
It does make no sense how he's so good at everything.
Right. Like, there's just no reason why this should be a good book. But it is. It's great. I mean, China Miéville, I like China Miéville. I love, Kraken is a great novel. And, he's a talented writer, obviously. So I'm sure Keanu got a lot of help. But, it should have been like a, celebrity one-off or something. But it's not. It's it has so much substance to it. It's not breezy. It is not movie-like. It is gritty and sometimes like really powerful. And then sometimes you're just like, I don't know what's happening, but it's fun.
Yeah.
I hope more people read it. I don't know if anybody's actually read it.
I think some people have read it. There's been blowback recently.
Blowback?
Not towards Keanu, towards celebrities writing, especially picture books.
Oh, yeah. Celebrities writing children's books is bullshit.
Yeah. And a lot of it's just like brand extension, right?
And
they're not writing it themselves.
No,
it's
a money taking.
to make more money and extend their name recognition, whatever. And that you don't get that vibe at all. It was like Keanu Reeves had this idea and he wanted it to be a book and he found some help writing it.
You would never do something because it's long and complicated and difficult. Yeah. Like, you would never do something like this as like a brand extension. Like, versus like Jennifer Garner has a picture book. It's like, who gives a crap? But people buy that shit, and it keeps there are better books that are not being bought just because people are like, oh, Katie Couric, wow. I don't even know if Katie Couric. Why Katie Couric? She's not even relevant. But
does
she have a book? I think she has a book.
She has like a book, not a kids. I mean, maybe she has a kid's book too. I don't know.
I bet she has a kid book. I'm not going to read that either. All right, your turn.
My turn. I'll do my other magic book, which is The Ministry of Time by Kaliane Bradley.
Not really magic, actually.
No, but there's
sci-fi.
Time travel. Yeah, it's sci-fi. And I don't know, for the people who have an issue with time travel, I don't know why. You don't experience the time travel really. It's just, we've brought people from the past to the present, and it's hilarious to see them adjusting to the present.
It's really funny.
She does an amazing job.
It's genuinely funny.
Genuinely funny. Then there's also this like extremely passionate love affair that happens. Someone definitely came in and said to me, you didn't tell me how spicy it was going to get. And I was like, well, I didn't want to ruin it for you.
Does it get that spicy? Really?
It gets a little spicy. Sure. And then it turns into this spy thriller. So
it's the whole package.
It's the whole package. And it's surprising and it's different, but totally like commercial in its way. Like, I feel like I can hand that to almost anybody. and they can be surprised and pleased by it.
No, it's definitely, mass market in that, it's very contemporary. It's got a lot of contemporary references. Like, the main character is like in their early 30s, late 20s, something like that, and they're very contemporary culture in the UK and London, and they're very hip in some ways. And it's a lot of the, like the identity politics stuff that has dominated national discourse. It kind of plays with all that sort of stuff. It plays with all the, bureaucratic job crap that anybody who's worked in a corporation has to deal with. I think it's really accessible. I didn't put it on my list only because I knew you were going to. I didn't want to overlap.
Yes, I know you had it as a potential candidate.
That's definitely on my honorable mention list.
And we had a bunch of, well, at least one other bookseller in the store has it on her top 5 list.
Oh, wow.
There are a lot of fans of this book. And I feel like this is a book that indie booksellers have really has helped to keep it a bestseller.
Yeah.
And
also
really made it.
Yeah. Also great graphic design. The cover is solid.
Yeah, good cover.
Great stickers and stuff that they sent people that I had put on my computer and whatnot.
Yeah, they did a really good marketing job.
So other funny books. I saw some other booktuber who has many more listeners than we do. They referred to this book as Banal Nightmare. Apparently, you say it banal.
I wasn't sure. I thought you knew because that's how you said
was
banal.
how you say it. But apparently, it was banal. That sounds dumb, but I call it Banal Nightmare. Also, I thought her name was Hallie Butler because it's Halle.
Yeah.
This booktuber referred to her as Hall Butler. So
I'm going with Hallie still.
Well, I'm going to do whatever I want, but I think
we should probably check, but I don't know how.
I don't know how you do that, but call her up. But anyway, Banal Nightmare, I think is super funny. Funniest book I've read this year. I laughed out loud many times. The characters in this book are so mean. It's great. There is nobody to like at all in this book, and that's the sort of joy of it. It's just a way to indulge in all of the little things that you think about the people at this work event or this cocktail party you don't want to be at or wherever. But you don't say out loud. In this book, they say it out loud. And it's very funny. And actually, it's mostly interior monologues. So, you do get a lot of stuff that they don't say out loud. But just cutting but not mean in a mean way, mean in a like existentially critical way in that, why are we like this? Why did we decide this is how we want to organize ourselves? Why did we make these decisions? Who is happy with this? Who is it that likes this crap that we're doing? That's one of my favorite parts of it is like everybody at this party is like, why am I here? And it's, how do we arrive at parties that nobody wants to be at? I also ask those questions all the time. It's like
when you went to the party the other night, were you like,
no,
why do we go to parties?
That party actually I enjoyed because it was not like a reception for the beginning of this event or whatever. It's like
there were people you genuinely wanted to see there,
right? Yeah, but this is like it's a lot of it is very critical of the art world, right? Like we're at this reception for this artist that nobody actually likes, but we bought a bunch of work because whatever. I don't know. I think you have to have been in some of these circles to really appreciate some of it. But like if you've done anything sort of academic or art world or literary world at any point, I think you will find it very entertaining. It should have sold more books than it has.
Yes. My next book has some similarities. It's Long Island Compromise by Taffy Brodesser-Akner, which has humor in it. I definitely snorted a few times, and has characters you will love to hate. I mean, they're just such downers sometimes, but like in a really enjoyable way. They're all a mess. So it's these 3 siblings. Their father was kidnapped and, but then made it home safely. but basically no one ever really recovered from this. Like he certainly never did, and it affected them so that now 30 years later, they're adults and they just like none of them have their shit together. They're all disasters in different ways. And so you get each of their stories. And I've been telling people, like, I find this like a great American novel. And everyone sort of looks at me and is like, well, what do you mean? And what I mean is
it's about the American experience.
It's about the American experience. It has a really kind of typical backstory of, they had this grandfather who escaped the Holocaust and emigrated to America and started this factory and like made something of himself. The family now has all this money from this factory that he started. But now, in 2024, that factory is incredibly problematic. It's an environmental disaster. And, are they paying their workers enough? How do they, turn this factory into something that's not a terrible thing? And they're all benefiting from the money that it's made over the years. And they have to like come to grips with this. So
the moral questions of our time.
Yes. So I just think it's great. And there are some like intense parts and some gross parts and some like downer parts, but I found it all. She does it with humor, enough humor that it's a really
the way
enjoyable read.
Hyped it up. I thought I would see it on more end of year lists. I haven't really seen much about it. So.
The New York Times 100 notable books list came out just this morning.
Oh.
And it's on there.
Aha.
And, I think we'll see it on more best of the year lists. It's just, I don't think it's like an award book, but I do think it's like a best of the year book.
Yeah. NPR just released their like books we love list. And I haven't had time to go through it yet. So.
Oh yeah. I haven't looked at that yet.
We'll see. All right. Let's see. This one. Okay. I'll pick a book that I really liked, but I have seen almost nothing about, which is Kirsten Backus's King Nix.
Yes.
I loved Lives of the Monster Dogs. She released that like in 99, I think, something like that. Then she went and taught literature for 25 years and didn't release any other books. And this is her first book since then, King Nix. It's a period piece set in the 1920s, I think, 1920s New York, something like that. Very gothic, very moody, very dark, kind of similar to Monster Dogs in that it has this obviously, if you've got walking and talking dogs, you've got a little bit of like magic or whatever,
sure.
But it's kind of explained away in the universe. It's just science, and they've figured out a way to, merge German shepherds with soldiers. And so they have soldier dogs. And this similarly, there's this kind of, like I would say Frankenstein vibe where, are we animating these corpses or what, what's going on here? Kind of constructed automatons or whatever. And it's just weird. Also super feminist, basically is really a lot of the kind of angst of the main character is wrapped up in her kind of inability to self-actualize because she's got to, figure out a way to manage the patriarchy. She was a maid and, her mom was a maid and how do we do all this sort of stuff? And anyway,
you liked
it.
Yes.
I did.
Okay.
That's true.
I feel like I should have talked about my next book when we were talking about funny books.
Uh-huh.
And that is Sandwich by Catherine Newman.
Oh, yeah. You thought that was very funny.
I thought it was very funny. I thought it was the perfect summer read, though you also could enjoy it any time of year. But perfect summer read because it's set over a course of a week during the summer on Sandwich, Cape Cod.
Right.
And It's about a family vacation. And, it's one of those books that it's about, being a middle-aged mom and you have kind of adult children and you have aging parents. So, sandwich generation.
The sandwich generation.
Yeah. So you're dealing with a lot of things that are important, but it's a book that's like, it's not too dark. It's not too light. It's, it's just that perfect balance of serious and humor and light and dark, and and
Goldilocks
it's
porridge.
exactly.
It's been very popular. I've
It has been
hand-sold
very
that
popular.
a number of times, actually, in the
Yeah.
thing. I do want to talk about, I'll group a couple here. Hannah seems to be wanting to urge me on. So I will group.
Just on that one book. I
just
felt
on
like we'd
that one
heard enough
book.
about
Yes,
King
I
Dick, so we
know,
were getting
yes.
a little, lost in the
Everybody
plot.
knows. Yeah. I'll talk about two books because I do want to mention a couple of nonfiction books
Yes.
because I do enjoy, especially biographies and autobiographies. I do want to mention Keith O'Brien's Charlie Hustle.
Awesome.
About Pete Rose. Just an awesome sports biography, gets into the societal moment that made Pete Rose, why we loved him, why his brand or whatever it is endured, why people actually still argue about him being in the Hall of Fame. And then he died. So, good timing for Keith. And hopefully that helped him sell a few more books because, he clearly put just thousands of hours of research into it. And then also wanted to mention Kathleen Hanna's Rebel Girl, which I do think will find its way on lots of lists. Because I think the Riot Girl movement is having a little renaissance of sorts.
Sure.
Because a lot of those girls are starting to hit their sort of middle-aged years, and they're starting to put out retrospectives. And Nirvana is like crazy popular again. I've seen like the Nirvana t-shirt everywhere on kids. I think like Ruby has a Nirvana shirt. I was like, where did you get that? And so that whole kind of grunge generation is coming back around. If you want to understand it, you should really read Rebel Girl by Kathleen Hanna. She was right there at the beginning, mucked up right in she was the publisher of Riot Girl magazine. So you should read both of those books.
As an aside, this is not grunge or Riot Girl. It's just 90s music. The REM biography is quite enjoyable.
Oh.
And also gets at that era. So I'm just going to throw that in there. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything else.
Yeah, that's on my list for Christmas, actually.
Great. All right, I have three more. They don't group. So let me talk about my one nonfiction book. I do read a lot of memoirs. Otherwise, I don't really read a lot of nonfiction. But of the memoirs I read, the one I loved the most was not published this year. It's an older one. It came out this year as a 25th anniversary edition. And that was All Souls by Michael Patrick McDonald.
Oh, that's right.
Which was a memoir about, growing up in Southie, in the 70s, like during the busing riots and just, the craziness that it was to live there, to live in poverty. He was, one of the younger members of a very large family of a single mom.
And he's like a priest now or something, right?
No, he's not a priest, but he did kind of, get out. Like he maybe just is more academic. He was always more academically minded than kind of the rest of his peers.
Maybe his brother's a priest or something.
So he became a writer. Maybe one of his brothers is a priest. I don't remember now. But he just does
all
a lot
those
of
Catholics. I just assume they're all priests.
Yeah. Anyway, he's not personally a priest himself, but yeah.
I don't know. It just reminds me of a book that you should definitely not read, but I won't even talk about it because it's not worth wasting time.
Okay, but I had one other book that wasn't published this year. I had kind of put this on my list before I kind of thought about my nonfiction picks. So my other slightly older title is The Guide by Peter Heller,
right? Which
I did just love. Like I crushed it. I love a book that has that kind of beautiful writing with a like breakneck thriller pace.
Yeah.
Which is that book. The nature writing is insane.
I know. I need to read it because I read The River this year, which I loved. Right. And that's the follow-up to The River. So I'm going to read The Guide.
You need read The Guide. I need to read The River. Well, I'll go backwards. I'll do it reverse order.
You didn't read The River? Oh.
No, I just picked up The Guide because we had it up at camp.
Yeah. Well, that gives me something to look forward to at camp. So I can read that there. Unless you stole it. You didn't take it home.
I didn't steal it. I left it. So someone else could have that experience.
All right. So you have one more book and I have one more book.
Okay.
I know you're reading this right now, or you just finished it.
And it maybe would have made my list. I'm not actually done with it yet.
Yeah.
And I was sort of working on my list already. It is so great. So
I think it's probably my
it.
favorite book of the year, which is On the Calculation of Volume, Book 1 by Solveig Barle. I don't know how to say her name either. So I'm sure some
that was a
booktuber
good attempt.
will correct me at some point. But I raved about it, whatever it was, 10 podcasts ago, but just an amazing thought piece. It has this Groundhog Day element to it, but it just undersells it. It's just, if you sometimes feel like you are living the same day over and over again, this is the book for you. Right? It just questions what is different about each day and what are the things we're trying to accomplish and how do we create our relationships and why do we, love people for this reason or that reason. It's just the voice of the narrator is so compelling. The organization of it as like a diary is great. The just descent into sort of general madness is so incredible to watch. I just think she does. I can't wait to read the
Volume
6
2.
more books in the freaking 7-volume series or whatever it is. I just think it's spectacular.
It is spectacular. And I read it wondering why it's so, so many of like each paragraph is about the sounds, the sounds and the light and just the different elements that kind of mark each day and what she notices, the narrator notices that like, okay, this is the same every single day. Okay, now the, pot is boiling. Now a car is driving by. Now this type of bird is tweeting. And it's fascinating, right? And I'm like, why is that fascinating?
Yeah.
But it's just the way she does it. It's so compelling.
Well, it's so granular and it forces you to think about all the things that you don't notice, like I have no idea what it sounds like outside or a truck going by or a door slamming or, like you don't even pay attention to them. What are we missing by not paying attention?
Right. Yeah. So the book, November 18th is just happening over and over and over again for this character. And the book, they published the book for the first time in its English translation on like November 18th or 19th. It was
originally supposed to be November 18th, but I noticed in our system
ours was
changed
late.
It to the 26th. I was like, why is it the 26th?
I didn't know if it changed. Or
I think they couldn't get their publication run done. No, it changed to the 26th in the symptoms. I think they screwed something up. Because it should have released on the 18th. It's moronic for it not to release on the 18th.
It was supposed to. And I do think that, the idea of that is really cool. But in reality, it doesn't give you a lot of time to make hay with it as a book. So like it's arriving on that day.
Right.
And in reality, it arrived a week late.
Yeah.
So I wish they put it out a little earlier.
Well, or if they just gave it to us, 2 weeks ahead of time, we could have created a little buzz for it, like be here on the 18th to get this awesome book, but we didn't even have copies of it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So that was slightly unfortunate, but it doesn't really matter because it's just...
No, it doesn't know. It's a small publisher too, I'm assuming. That,
it's New Directions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it interesting too that the author, I think that book was published originally, and it's Danish, I think, right?
I think so, yeah. She's like the friggin' queen of Danish literature or whatever. You go look at her. She's won like 1 million awards and stuff.
I think the book came out originally there in early 2020, which is super interesting considering like the pandemic made everybody feel that Groundhog Day feeling. But like she had written all this before that.
I know. But I don't know when she wrote the next 6 volumes, if she wrote them all at once. I just don't know.
I think she's still writing them.
Oh, really?
The volume, or
I thought they were all out in Dutch.
Because of the book's called On the Calculation of Volume. I keep wanting to say volume 1, volume 2.
Right,
I think it's like volume's actually just part of the title. So book 2 is out, came out at the same time as book 1. But I think I mentioned on Blue Sky to you that but I read an interview with the translator that said, she was about to retire, but she'd worked on this Danish author's at least one previous book and really loved her and was sort of asked to translate this book. And so she put off retirement to translate this book.
Wow.
She loved it. She just thought it was so good. And then she said, I don't know that like I'll still be, translating by the time book 7 comes out. And I just thought, how do you have a different translator?
Yeah, that would be bonkers town.
So I don't think it's all done yet. So I was like, so the fact that she knows it's going to be 7 volumes and like she has this plan, I guess the author has a plan. I don't know.
I guess. I can't wait to see what happens. Like, is it going to be November 18th for all 7 volumes? Like,
I don't know.
It'd be just crazy. I just can't wait. I want to see it.
Wait. Okay. I have one last book to talk about, and it is The Safekeep by Yael Wouden. And this is one, when I first read it, I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't like over the moon. But it is a book that has stayed with me. And as, the year has progressed, I have found that it has kind of risen.
Yeah, you keep thinking about it.
Yeah, I keep thinking about it. So this is a book that is set post-World War II in the Netherlands. And it's set, outside of Amsterdam. So like in the countryside in this house where the house is kind of almost a character. So I found that the time period really interesting, and it presented, issues in that country post-war that I hadn't really thought about. Part of that is like land and property ownership.
Right.
So that kind of comes into play. Then there's also this like very passionate love story it's like pretty complicated. The characters, I think, are super well drawn. And then it has this like incredible twist in the middle of the book.
Oh.
So I think all those elements together make it really great.
That sounds great. All right. Well, we didn't really build up to anything there at the end, but
that's fine. We did our list of 10.
That's each. 20 books that we actually 19 books that we think
we only have one overlap.
Right. And you should read all of them. You could buy them from us if you wanted to. Other things, hopefully this comes out in time for Black Friday or whatever, Noir Friday, as we call it in the bookshop.
Plaid Friday, we're maybe adopting. I don't know.
I don't want to.
I don't really get Plaid Friday.
It's dumb. Like, I'm wearing plaid. What? No, I don't want to wear plaid. I wear plaid, if I want to, but not on
I'm
purpose.
wearing plaid right now.
You're wearing plaid right now. I know. It's probably easier for people in Massachusetts. People in Massachusetts probably wear plaid every day. How would you even know it was Plaid Friday?
What?
I don't know. I feel like it's like a blue blood thing to wear plaid.
Okay.
Don't you think?
I don't know.
And, along with people who wear like LL Bean shirts in Maine. Like we were actually, what gig was it? Damn. There was so I went to see some band and there was like 5 guys in the band and all of them were wearing plaid LL Bean shirts by mistake. I was like, oh, you guys have a thing. And they're like, no, we didn't do this on purpose.
Well, I have a pretty sweet pair of plaid pants that I'm planning to wear.
Okay. All right. I like Noir Friday. It seems to make sense for the books industry. We could all be doing 20% off like mysteries or, have a Raymond Chandler.
We have done that in the past.
vibe.
And I don't feel like we've sold very many mysteries. I don't know why.
Well, I think other people need to get on board. We can't, carry this whole thing ourselves.
Okay.
But we'll see what happens.
We'll call the American Booksellers Association.
Regardless, it's also very possible that this doesn't come out until after that weekend, depending on how much my act is together. So we will see what happens. But we also have, don't forget to come and see Matt Tavares do some like coloring and whatnot and talk about Dasher, his awesome children's book. We're at the Hastings House, which is right down the street from our bookshop. It is going to be super fun.
December 7th, 10 a.m. It's a Saturday. Bring the kids if you want.
Or don't. Maybe you just like children's books. You can do that. You can come all by your adult self.
Holiday event.
Yeah, exactly. And Matt is really charming and talented, and he's going to have an easel, I think, and color.
Yeah, for sure.
Not color, draw, I guess. Whatever.
Draw. He draws.
But I bet he colors too at some point. All right. Anyway, thanks y'all for listening. We will have another of these podcasts before the end of the year. 2, in fact. What we're going to talk about, I don't know. But I did just read Age of Innocence, which I want to talk about. I know you. I
love a good Edith Wharton novel.
I know you read House of Mirth earlier this year, so maybe we can talk a little bit about why it's important not to just read contemporary fiction all the time.
Okay.
All right. See you later, everybody.
Bye.